The morning in Springdale, Arkansas was bright. It was unusually quiet in the Duggar household, yet there was a palpable sense of excitement. The morning sun crept softly through the curtains of Jana Duggar's bedroom. Her soft voice burst into a shout of ecstasy and tiredness after hours of work. With a warm tone, the nurse murmured, "It's a girl." Jana's husband, Stephen Wisman, stood next to her, crying as he watched their newborn breathe for the first time. This was more than simply a birth for Jana, who had been waiting so long to become a mother. It was a fresh start. Michelle Duggar and her husband Jim Bob were praying outside the hospital room while holding hands. "Thank you, Lord, for this miracle," Michelle muttered. They had seen Jana take care of her younger siblings for years, wondering if she would ever become a mother. That prayer had now been heard. The Duggar siblings group chat rapidly became inundated with news of the birth. Exciting messages began to pour in. Joy, Jill, and Jinger all expressed their affection. But in the bustle of congratulations, one communication came slower than usual. Sitting in her living room, Jessa Duggar watched the news of Jana's baby light up on her phone screen. She gave a small grin, but her eyes were vacant and worn out. Ben Sewald sat on the couch next to her, staring at the floor in silence. There was a gap between them that words could no longer fill. Their marriage, once full of laughter and affection, had quietly been slipping apart. Priorities had shifted, and misunderstandings had increased. Ben was having trouble with his own identity and beliefs, and Jessa, who is now a mother of 4, had been feeling emotionally spent. Everyone's faces brightened with joy as the Duggar family group video conference got underway. Despite her weariness, Jana was smiling and gorgeous when she appeared on screen carrying her newborn daughter. She whispered, "Everyone, meet baby Grace Michelle Wisman." The family was ecstatic. Jim Bob gave a cheer. Michelle cried. Josie gave a little squeal. Seemed to be the ideal Duggar moment. Jessa, however, said nothing. Her lips quivered as she gave a courteous grin. She didn't react when Ben reached for her hand. Both of them were aware that their hearts were no longer in harmony. There was silence in their living room when the call ended. After taking a big breath, Jessa finally spoke the words that had been bothering her for months. "I believe we both realize this isn't working anymore, Ben." Ben's eyes were moist as he cautiously looked up. "Don't say that, Jessica. We are able to repair it. We consistently stated that divorce was not an option." Her cheeks were wet with tears. "I said that when I thought prayer could make things better. Now, though, I simply can't continue to act as though everything is fine." The spring rain started to pour outside. It was gentle, constant, and almost symbolic. In the meantime, Jana whispered pledges of love and protection to her daughter while holding her close in the hospital. "You did it, Jana," Stephen whispered as he kissed her forehead. "At last you are a mother." In that same moment, just kilometers away, Jessa discreetly packed a little luggage. She didn't want her tears to be heard by the kids. She put her wedding band on the kitchen table next to a simple message that said, "I will always look out for you, but it's time for us to both find tranquility." The Duggar family's group chat was lively again that evening, brimming with affection and baby photos. However, one message was never delivered. Jessa did not respond, and for the first time, a day that began with the joy of new life also contained the agony of a broken bond. The Duggar household was a hive of activity the following morning. As she prepared flowers for Jana's homecoming, Michelle had been up since the break of day. White balloons with the words "Welcome Baby Grace" and delicate pink ribbons adorned the living area, while Jim Bob attempted and failed to install the new car seat. Johanna and Jennifer were folding baby blankets. After waiting for months, the entire family was in a state of joyful turmoil. However, not everyone was there. The lack of Jessa lingered like an unsolved question. "Did anyone hear from Jessa last night?" Michelle asked, tying a ribbon while scowling a little. Joanna lifted her phone and looked up. "She told me via text earlier that she was taking a break. Said very little else." Michelle forced a grin. "Perhaps she's simply exhausted. When she's ready, she will arrive." But she had a gut feeling that something wasn't right. When one of her children is in suffering, a mother can always tell. Baby Grace was sleeping soundly on Jana's chest as she sat in her hospital bed. Beside her, Stephen gazed gratefully and in wonder at his wife. He said, "You've made me the happiest man alive." Jana gave a feeble smile. After everything, I can't believe she's finally here." Her mind strayed to the years she had dedicated to raising her younger siblings, constantly putting aside her own aspirations. She had occasionally feared that she might never become a mother. It all felt worthwhile now, though, as she had Grace in her arms. Her phone chimed at that moment. Jinger had left a message. "I'm very proud of you, Jana. You are deserving of every bit of joy. Right now I wish I could be there." Jana grinned, until she noticed that Jill had sent her another message. "Hey, did Jessa get back to you? She is not picking up the phone. Ben just shared an odd post." Jana scowled, perplexed. Her heart fell when she logged onto social media. There was a straightforward, subdued post on Ben Sewald's page. "Sometimes love means letting go. Please be considerate of our privacy at this time." As Jana read the lines, her hand shook. Fans were quickly flooding the comment section with questions about why, how, and when, as well as feelings of heartbreak and confusion. Jana didn't have to ask, though. She was too familiar with her sister's heart. "Oh, Jessa," she whispered quietly. When Michelle and Jim Bob showed up at the hospital later that day to take Jana and Grace home, they saw that Jana's face was pale. "What's wrong, my love?" Michelle inquired right away. After some hesitation, Jana gave the phone to her mother. "This is Jessa." Michelle's demeanor changed from bewilderment to incredulity as she looked over the message. "No, this isn't possible. They were making an effort and they have received counseling." Jim Bob rubbed his forehead and sighed deeply. "I didn't think she would actually follow through, even though I knew they were having difficulties." Heartbreak abruptly overpowered the happiness of the new baby. The tension and deep sadness that were growing in the room were palpable to Jana. She gazed down at Grace, naive and oblivious to the tempest that had recently swept into their family's life. "I don't want this day to be about sadness," she added softly. "Grace deserves a warm greeting." Michelle, crying, nodded. "You're right, honey. Jessa will be dealt with later. Let's just take our girls home for the time being." That evening, the family met for a little welcome dinner at the Duggar house. As everyone passed Grace around in wonder and love, Jana sat on the couch and held her close. Josie couldn't stop laughing. Joanna snapped dozens of photos, and Jim Bob started crying when holding his newest granddaughter. The dining table was noticeably empty, though, in spite of the hilarity. Jessa's seat, which was typically next to Jill, was still vacant. The laughing seemed to be drowned out by her absence. Michelle continued checking her phone expecting a message, but it never arrived. Finally, as everyone was ready to go, a silent notification buzzed on her device. "Jessa texted me about it. I'm all right, Mom. Don't worry, please. All I need is a little vacation. Tell Jana I'm happy for her. Really." Michelle's eyes filled with tears. Jana took the phone from her and read the message quietly. Jana muttered, "She still cares." "Yes," Michelle said quietly. "She will always do it. She's simply in pain." In the meantime, Jessa was sitting in a little rented apartment far from the Duggar house, with her kids sleeping in the adjacent room. The illumination was low. Framed pictures of her wedding day, her children's first birthdays, and one family portrait that now seemed to belong in a different era were on the table next to her. She sighed as she gazed at her image in the window. Her voice cracked as she muttered, "Jana, I'm happy for you. I really am." Outside, the rain started to fall once more, tapping softly on the glass, resembling the steady, slow cadence of a heart breaking. When everyone in the Duggar house eventually fell asleep, Jana sat near the cot and observed Grace's gentle breathing. She kissed her small forehead and whispered, "You were born on a day that simultaneously caused our family to break and heal." She smiled despite the tears in her eyes. "Perhaps that's what life is like, Grace. Pain and happiness mingled together. And we simply continue in some way." The warm, bright light inside the nursery contrasted with the storm outside as the camera gently panned out. Two sisters. 2 trips. Love, grief, and faith bind one family together forever. The morning light rose slowly over the calm town of Springdale, but inside the Duggar home, peace was hard to find. Public headlines were created from what had begun as whispers in private family conversations. By midday, breaking news was all over tabloids and social media. After almost 10 years of marriage, Jessica Duggar and Ben Sewald announced their separation. Just days after Jana's baby is born, the Duggar family faces another crisis. Like wildfire, the articles went viral. There was conjecture on every fan page and a flurry of activity in every online forum. Incredulous, Michelle sat at the kitchen table and browsed through her phone. The remarks were nasty. Strangers judging, criticizing, offering pity. Her eyes were sleepy as she gazed up at Jim Bob. She muttered, "I'm not sure how much more of this our family can handle." Jim Bob raked a hand through his graying hair and let out a long sigh. "We did the best we could to raise our kids. However, Michelle, they are now grown-ups. We have no influence over what they do or say." Michelle's tone faltered. "All I want is for Jessa to return home. At this moment she needs her family." Meanwhile, Jana was humming softly while cradling baby Grace in the nursery. However, the world outside could still be heard despite the lullaby's lovely cadence. Every few minutes, her phone buzzed with calls from friends, family members messaging with concerns, and media requesting statements. Stephen softly entered with a tray of breakfast. "You must consume some food," he remarked softly. Jana gave a small smile. "I'm all right. I'm just attempting to comprehend everything." He took a seat next to her. "Jana, you can't solve everything. You've spent your whole life trying to keep this family together. But sometimes, even if it hurts your feelings, people must follow their own paths." She clutched a finger as she gazed down at Grace's small hands. "I understand. However, seeing Jessa so forlorn is painful. She's always been the strong one, the vocal one. She has since stopped talking." Jessa, meantime, tried to block out the outside world in her tiny flat across town. Still, she heard the sounds. Missed calls, sibling texts, and headlines she wished she could hide were all on her phone. Her kids' laughter filled the little room as they played on the floor. She smiled briefly before her youngest daughter walked over with a family photo from before the breakup. "Where is Daddy, Mommy?" Jessa stopped. Tears threatened to fall from her clenched throat. She bent over and cradled her daughter. "Dear Daddy is taking a break, but he still has a deep affection for you." Too little to comprehend, yet old enough to realize that something had changed, the tiny girl nodded. Jessa sat by herself on the couch after putting the children to bed. Once more her phone buzzed. It was Jill making a video call. After a brief pause, she responded. With worried eyes, Jill replied softly, "Hey, I just wanted to check in with you." With a feeble smile, Jessa answered, "I'm surviving. How are things going for everyone?" They're concerned. Mom's been crying. Jana is attempting to maintain her composure, but you are aware of her tendency to hold herself responsible for everything. Jessa let out a sigh. It's exactly like her. She constantly attempts to bear the burdens of others. Jill's face became softer. Then give her a small portion of yours. Jessa, you don't have to face this alone. Jana was in the living room that night when her phone rang. Jessa was the one. As she responded, her heart skipped a beat. "Jessa? Is that you?" Jessa spoke in a low, tremulous voice. "Indeed. I only wanted to congratulate you. I looked at the photos. Grace is lovely." Jana grinned through tears. "I'm grateful, Jess. She is flawless. However, I've been concerned about you." "I understand," Jessa muttered. "I simply needed room. The cameras and everyone's disappointment were too much for me to stomach. I didn't want to spoil your joy." "Did you ruin it?" Jana's tone grew softer. "My happiness isn't ruined by your suffering, Jessica. It serves as a reminder of our humanity. Perhaps it's no coincidence that Grace entered this earth on the day your world collapsed." Jessa remained quiet for a while. "I don't even know who I am anymore," she added. "I spent a lot of time trying to be the ideal wife, mother, and Duggar daughter that everyone expected me to be. However, I lost myself somewhere in the process." Jana's tone faltered. "Jessa, perhaps it's time you found yourself. Just you, not who your parents desired or who was captured on camera." There was a long stillness. Then quietly, Jessa said, "I'm afraid." "I understand," Jana said. "However, I will be present. Each and every stage." One chair was vacant the following day as the Duggar family got together for their long-standing Sunday breakfast custom. However, something was different this time. Michelle handed Jana a little pink envelope that she had pulled out. This morning it arrived in the mail. There was a card inside, written by hand. Asterisk, "Tell them I love them. When I'm ready, I'll return home shortly. Jessa." Michelle's eyes welled up with tears as she read the lines out loud. "That's all we can ask for," Jim Bob said with a low nod. Jana held Grace tight while grinning weakly. She is retracing her steps. The family got together in the living room that evening to pray for healing rather than perfection. Jana sensed a change in herself as they bowed their heads. She didn't feel the need to make everything right for the first time in years. She simply felt calm. The rain had ceased outside. Through the window, a lovely moonlight fell over baby Grace's small hand as it rested against Jana's heart. Jessa, on the other side of town, was sitting by her window, observing the same moon. She prayed quietly, not for her marriage to come back, but for the courage to go on. "If this is my new beginning, Lord, please give me the strength to face it." A soft piano tune played as the screen went black. A quote appeared. "Some days are filled with both happiness and sadness, but those are the days that serve as a reminder of what it means to live life to the fullest." That difficult, memorable day, the day that gave the Duggar family both life and heartache, had been weeks ago. A sense of delicate healing was beginning to take root as Springdale settled into the serene serenity of early summer. The Duggar house, which had been tense and full of rumors, was starting to breathe again. Jana had adapted to motherhood well, despite the fact that she now had restless nights all the time. The center of the home was now baby Grace. There was hope everywhere because of her gentle sobs, her little giggles, and her presence. Michelle frequently visited, assisting Jana with feeding and laundry. "You're doing such a beautiful job, sweetheart," she'd remark, stroking a strand of hair from Jana's sleepy face. Jana grinned, her eyes tired yet happy. "Mom, Grace keeps me going. She serves as a reminder to me that beauty can blossom, even in the midst of the most trying circumstances." Jessa Duggar, however, was working nearby to reconstruct her own reality, one agonizingly slow step at a time. Her tiny apartment had transformed from a place of grief to a place of residence. The drawings made by her kids adorned the walls. Jill had placed a vase of fresh flowers on the dining table as a gift. Jessa would take her children to the park every morning to see them play, laugh, and run outside. But as soon as she sat on the bench, she was transported back to her former life, complete with the large Duggar home, family dinners, and the sound of laughing filling the halls. She would occasionally question whether she had made the correct decision. But then, she'd gaze at her kids' cheerful smiles and remind herself, peace is preferable to pretending. Jana sent Jessa the following message one afternoon. "I wish you could meet Grace. There is no pressure. Just us. Just sisters, no cameras, no family." For a long moment, Jessa gazed at the message. Her heart pounded. She had missed holding her niece and the soft solace of her sister's presence, as she hadn't seen Jana since before the birth. At last she answered, "Tomorrow. In the afternoon. I will attend." The following day was warm with gentle golden sunlight. Jana waited nervously in the living room, Grace resting blissfully in her bassinet. Jessa's heart pounded as her automobile arrived. Slowly the door opened. Jessa was there, quieter and thinner than before, but she had a certain serenity in her eyes. "Hey," Jana murmured. Jessa returned the whisper, her voice breaking. "Hey." Before baby Grace moved and started to cry, they stood there for a while, not knowing what to say. Jana grabbed her up out of instinct and rocked her gently. "Am I?" With hesitation, Jessa asked. "Obviously." Tears filled Jessa's eyes as she held Grace for the first time. The infant gave her a wide-eyed, innocent blink. "She's stunning," Jessa muttered. "She resembles you exactly." Jana gave a small smile. "She was born on the day you began your new life. She seems to possess some of your strength, in my opinion." Jessa chuckled quietly while crying. "Strength? I feel as though I've been disintegrating." Jana extended her hand and gave it a squeeze. Sometimes falling apart is the first step to rebuilding. Two sisters, one holding new life and the other rediscovering her own, sat together in silence. They went for a stroll in the backyard afterwards. The warm afternoon was filled with the sound of cicadas and the scent of dirt and lilac. "At first I was angry," Jessa quietly said. "Just at myself, not at anybody else. I felt like I let you, Mom, and God down. However, I later came to the realization that I was merely attempting to live a life that was no longer mine." Jana gave a nod. "Jessa, you didn't fail. Despite the pain, you had the courage to choose serenity." Jessa raised her gaze to the heavens. Do you think your parents will ever comprehend? Jana gave a sorrowful smile. They will. Perhaps not entirely, perhaps not today. But they'll see your heart, and that's what matters. Jessa let out a breath painlessly for the first time in a long time. Jessa unexpectedly attended the family supper that night. There was silence in the room when she entered. With tears welling up in her eyes, Michelle stopped in her tracks. "Mom," Jessa murmured. "I'm at home." Michelle hurried over and embraced her daughter. "Oh, Jessa, you have been sorely missed." Jessa cried softly. "I apologize for everything." Jim Bob moved forward and spoke in a stern but gentle tone. "No more excuses. Only family." Soft laughter and silent tears filled the room. Sitting close by, Jana held Grace while she observed the reunion. Forgiveness permeated the air. It was genuine but brittle. When everyone had gone to bed later that evening, Jana sat by Grace's crib and wrote in her journal, "My sister returned home today. Although I have no idea what the future holds for any of us, I do know that love never breaks. Instead, it extends, bends, and eventually finds its way back." She shut the notebook and turned to face her daughter, who was soundly asleep. A lullaby could be heard faintly in the background as the camera steadily panned out. Once split by sorrow, the house now gleamed subtly in the moonlight. Jessa woke up in another room and heard her family laughing softly down the hallway. A grin filled her face as she whispered a little prayer. "I'm grateful that you gave me the strength to return, Lord." Blackness engulfed the scene. A gentle piano tune started to play. Text displayed on the screen. Every family experiences both happy and sad days. However, true love always finds a way back home. It had been months. Arkansas's leaves were dancing in the gentle fall breeze as they turned golden, once resonating with heartache and laughter. The Duggar family home now hummed with warmth. Despite the changes, life had settled into a pattern. Baby Grace was sleeping in Jana Duggar's arms as she sat on the porch. The sunset was shining across the horizon, and the sky was painted in pink and golden hues. Stephen brought 2 cups of tea outdoors and placed one next to her. "You appear calm," he remarked quietly. Jana grinned. "I truly am, for the first time in a long time." Leaning over the railing, Stephen observed their daughter's small hand encircling Jana's necklace. "What a year it has been." Jana gave a nod. "A year that broke us, but in some way it made us stronger." She heard familiar laughing coming from the direction of the road. Before the engine had even stopped, Jessa's children were tumbling out of her car as it drew into the driveway. "Aunt Jana!" They yelled as they rushed at her, their arms outstretched. After putting Grace down in her stroller and laughing, Jana drew them closer. Jessa emerged behind them. She appeared lighter and more liberated now. Her gaze returned to her smile. "You succeeded," Jana answered kindly. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," Jessa answered in a bright, calm voice. Bending over, she took Grace in her arms and held her tenderly. "Hey, young one. You've gotten so big since I last saw you." Jana grinned. Her favorite aunt has been waiting for her. For a little time, everything felt complete again as they laughed softly. The rest of the Duggar family was inside getting ready for a modest meal. Michelle was quietly singing a hymn as she laid the table, while the younger siblings made a cake that proclaimed family forever. Jim Bob assisted Josie with the drinks. The room was silent for a moment as Jessa entered. Michelle's eyes glowed as she turned. "Jessa," she muttered, her voice full of sorrow. "Mom," Jessa murmured. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Michelle moved forward and gave her daughter a lengthy, quiet embrace. "You were always my little girl. That could never be altered by error." A hand was placed on Jessa's shoulder by Jim Bob. "Jessa, you have our admiration. You had faith and persevered through the storm." Jessa grinned despite her tears. "I just stopped pretending I was okay and started trusting God again. I was saved by that." Laughter gradually filled the room as the family sat down to dinner. They were no longer as tense as they had been. With their hands clasped together and their voices low but earnest, they prayed. "Thank you, Lord, for teaching us that although life isn't perfect, love has the capacity to mend what's broken." When they opened their eyes, Michelle looked around the table, seeing Jim Bob grinning happily, Jana nursing baby Grace, and Jessa assisting Josie in cutting her food. Her heart grew. The family was different now. The world no longer saw them as the picture-perfect person they once were. However, something more profound, truth, grace, and understanding, was concealed in that flaw. Jana and Jessa sat outside under the stars later that night. The trees rustled in the warm night breeze, and distant crickets sang gently. "I used to think life was about doing everything right," Jana added gently. "Being the ideal woman, the ideal sister, the ideal daughter." Jessa gave a nod. "Me too. However, sometimes being genuine is more important than being flawless." Jana stared at her sister, a faint grin forming. "The day you left your former existence behind, Grace was born. Perhaps that was God's way of informing us both that shattered places can lead to new beginnings." Jessa extended her arm to grasp Jana's hand. "I believe you're correct." Silently, they sat together and gazed at the stars. Grace stirred in her stroller, letting forth a little sigh, as if mirroring their tranquility. Jessa prepared to drive home the following morning by loading her children into the car. "You saved me, you know," she muttered as she bid Jana farewell. Jana gave a head shake. "No, Jessa. You were able to save yourself. I only reminded you of the location of home." Sisters, survivors, and friends once more grinned. Jana was carrying Grace when Jessa's car vanished down the long country road, her hair catching the sunlight. Time seemed to have stopped to respect their quest, and the world seemed to be at a standstill. To her daughter, she whispered softly, "You'll discover one day, Grace, that although people make mistakes and hearts break, life is messy. But if you love genuinely and forgive without conditions, you'll always find your way back home." The breeze carried her words like a prayer as she kissed her baby's forehead. Last seen a year later. A sunny backyard is shown as the camera pans in. For Grace's first birthday, the entire Duggar family is present. Children run around chasing balloons, laughter abounds, and the aroma of freshly baked pie permeates the air. While Jana and Stephen cut the cake, Jessa holds Grace and laughs joyfully. Michelle observes from a distance, pride shining in her eyes. Jim Bob snaps a picture while his warm voice booms. "All right, let's say family." Their happy expressions, flawed but full of love, are captured on video. Sometimes we need to be reminded that family isn't about perfection by one special day. A day filled with tears and joy. It is about finding our way back to each other, forgiveness, and faith.